was taking, payouts, but it's also one of those things that in the front of your mind, you know that the market can go against you at any moment, and that's the being realistic. Everyone says the same, is that it's just getting harder. So
Yeah,
it means that we've got to get better and get smarter, and you've just got to make sure that you take your wins, and protect any sort of big losses.
hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Ola Trader Stories. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest, Stephen from Sydney, Australia, who's a funded trader here with Ola Prime. Stephen, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for inviting me, Sam. I'm glad to be here.
Excellent, excellent. So, Stephen, I think the viewers are really interested, just to get a bit of background about you, how you started with trading,
Yes.
and yeah, just a general get to know you a bit. So if you don't mind sharing just a little bit of background information about yourself, that'd be great.
Yeah, no, so I've been so I'm based in Australia. I've been born here, born and bred. I started my career probably about 19 years ago in financial services, which also included stockbroking. So I was working for the second biggest stockbroker in Australia during that time. And basically, eventually, they went into CMC markets with it, which is a CFD broker. But my
Mm,
journey kind of started, especially with CFD or futures, for example, around 2016. So that's when I started FX. It's been a long sort of 8 years and a bit, but I finally got some momentum, and obviously here today with a bit of success with Hola Prime. But yeah, it's been a rocky ride, but it's also a good learning curve. And what
yeah.
I've learned was years. I'm hoping to also help instill with any sort of beginners or new traders that are watching.
That's really awesome. So essentially, we get a lot of people who come from completely different industries. We've
Yeah,
had uh, people who did really like a 180 from the most, we had an artist once who then became a trader. So, but you actually come from, well, a financial background. So, do
yeah,
you feel that, being educated and being from that kind of world, I know obviously um, they are still a bit different, but being
yeah.
in that environment, that really helped you become a Forex trader? Or do you feel even if you were a completely different profession, the dedication time you put in, would still have got you down this path of being a trader?
Yes, to be brutally honest, no. I mean, I don't think it really makes any sort of difference of being in the financial services industry,
Mm,
because I've done different sort of roles. So whether it's more of a relationship role or otherwise back office, it's got nothing to do with trading. And to be honest, at school, my economics marks weren't too great. So um, I can assure you that I'm not studious at all. It's just a lot of dedication, as well as a lot of patience, and really reading a lot, watching videos, as well as yeah. I've also played a lot of sports when I was young, so it makes me a bit competitive. So I'm very competitive to win, and I think that's also goes into obviously my trading strategies and so forth.
yeah, no, that's really good. That's good to hear. That regardless of what your background is, becoming a trader is a learnable skill.
Yes.
And it really just depends how many hours you put in, how dedicated you are. And theoretically, everyone can become a trader if they're willing to put those hours in. So that's awesome to hear. So you went from working in the financial services, starting FX, so Forex. I'm assuming you
Yes.
started, how most people start with their own capital, maybe a demo account at first, testing strategies. Once you had something that worked, you went live. How did you go from trading your own capital to becoming a prop trader, more specifically trading with Ola Prime?
Yeah, so back in 2016, I was trading with IG markets, as well as Plus 500, which are two different brokers. Obviously, IG Markets being London-based, that was my primary sort of broker. I transitioned from that to probably prop firms in about 2022. And that's when I first learned about prop firms. Knowing that prop firms, you only need to risk a certain amount of your capital. Back in 2016, I was risking a lot more. And in 2018, when I was actually full-time trading, my capital base was probably about, I think it was about 200,000 where I was actually trading with. So it's a significant, going from 200,000 to risking that to risking something like 2,000.
Yeah.
So it gives me that sort of ease of mind, especially when I go to sleep, that if anything goes pear-shaped, especially within this sort of trading environment, I'm protected when it comes to my capital, and I can, focus on growing it in other ways of other investments as well.
Yeah. So it's quite good. That's really good to hear. You kind of diversify them as well.
Yeah.
Um, I want to talk about the actual instruments that you like to trade, because every trader is a bit different. Obviously, some people
Yeah.
like, the major pairs, euro, US dollar, pound, US dollar, etc. Some people like, more exotic ones or minor ones, despite, having bigger spreads.
Yeah.
Um, Other people love commodities, gold, oil, whatever it may be, or indices. Um, which kind of which instruments are your favorite? Which ones do you really, wake up in the
Yeah.
morning and can't wait to analyze?
So right now my specialty is AUD USD. Obviously being Aussie, the
Sure.
Aussie sense. I understand obviously what happens in Australia, as well as a lot of what happens in America and how that influences each pair. Previously I was US 30 because US 30 it basically correlates very close to the Aussie as well. But lately, I've also been getting into commodities, more gold. A while back actually when Trump was in his first term, I was
Hmm.
trading Brent oil. And obviously, yeah, his tweets can cause a storm when it comes to that because that was back when there were sanctions on, there were sanctions that he was implementing and oil was going up, above 80. Um, to 100. So that's the thing. That's the power of some people. But yeah, right now it's really focusing on the Aussie as well as gold or
Awesome.
XAUSD.
Awesome. So kind of a very commodity based currency then, really, because
Yes.
Aussie dollars is very similar to being Australia being quite rich in
Yes.
commodities, similar to gold. So that's quite awesome. I like how you mentioned
The,
about Trump being capable of moving the markets with one tweet.
yes. Yeah.
It's
Well,
incredible. Some people have that power, isn't it? I mean, uh,
it really is. Yeah, I mean, if you ever see, for example, Powell's, so Jerome Powell's
yeah,
speeches, the volatility that you get from
oh,
just those speeches alone, any sort of word, even everyone's just every trader who's experienced is really just trying to understand the sort of terminology he's using and how that's going to translate in whether it's interest rate cuts or rises or on
yeah,
hold. So it's one of those things is that trading is a funny game, but it is also very challenging and you always need to be able to adapt in
yeah,
order to overcome and be the best trader you can be.
yeah, absolutely. And like you mentioned with Jerome Powell, when he gives his talks, personally, I just if I see on the on the calendar he's speaking. I just don't trade. I mean, it's just
Yeah,
like you said, one
yeah,
word. One even if it's not even that big of a deal, what he's saying. If traders as a whole or investors as a whole perceive that to be negative or positive, it can just you know
yeah.
what I mean, and the market moves. And then Yeah, that's too volatile for me. So
Yeah,
yeah,
no,
I tend to
definitely.
stay away.
Same. I tried to avoid unless I've got a clear gap.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you do get lucky. Like if you've got, for example, if you go maybe 100 pips below if you're bullish or above if you're shortish, and then sometimes his speech can actually cause a liquidity grab,
Yeah.
and basically you get it. There was one trade a while back when he was speaking, and I had short gold,
Mm,
and I was just a few pips off, and that was real money. So that would have been a huge profit. But yeah, that's trading. It's like an inch or a mile. You can miss it or you can get lucky sometimes. But yeah, it's the name of the game pretty much.
absolutely. So let's get back onto your trading style. Are you, a scalper, intraday, swing trader, or position trader? What kind of what kind of trader are you time frame wise?
Yeah, so basically I'd be more price action. I generally look at the 4 hour charts,
Hmm.
try to analyze I've kind of gone because I've traded for now over 8 years. I don't probably invest as much time into the charts as I would need to. Because after the amount of time you really get accustomed to it because I've obviously studied technical analysis over time. I've seen movements. I also focus on only limited pairs rather than obviously overexposing myself to other pairs. So I try to specialize in a few pairs rather than a lot of other traders going into many and then kind of over trading, or even correlating pairs, which are basically you're basically downing. Um, but yeah, that's really my style. Is I'll also look at the supply and demand. So I'll look at the resistance, support, also psychological barriers.
Mm,
So for example, with the AUD USD, right now at the moment, I guess it's ranging around that 62 cents to 63 cents.
yeah,
So looking at that, obviously the sort of crucial barriers is that 62 and 63. So those sort of breaks, just being conscious, or even if it comes close to it, it could be time that people will be defending those sort of psychological barriers. Always conscious when it's kind of in the middle because you could have one thing and it could drop significantly. Or people, like yesterday, it went from basically touching 62 cents to 62.89, I think it was, from what I saw. And obviously, that was the result of the USD dropping as well as the inauguration of Trump. Yeah, people are obviously working out the policies and so forth. So those are the sort of things, but also making sure that the sort of stop loss, the risk management. So if I'm in a profit, I need to make sure that I move my stop loss, but I also don't want to be stopped out, because there's times where you'll be stopped out. So a lot of it's really I can just look at it and yeah, assess the situation and adapt. If there's anything like if I get stopped out, maybe yeah, I'll time it correctly, but be conscious of that. So.
yeah,
Yeah, there's a lot to go in with the strategy, but I also want to keep it as simple as possible. I think a lot of traders, for example, overcomplicate things, and that's where your mind plays tricks, and obviously your mind's your worst enemy. So I don't like to overcomplicate anything, for example.
yeah. No, that sounds really good. So you use supply and demand, price action,
Yes.
um, which is good. Tried and true, proven methods. We'll get onto psychology in a bit because naturally,
Yes.
obviously, psychology, you can have the best strategy in the world, but if you're not
Yeah.
in a good psychological headspace or you're letting your emotions trade for you, you're never really going to be successful. So we'll get to that in a bit on how you manage your emotions and psychology. But just for the viewers who are watching, if you don't mind, do you mind kind of sharing a few like key rules about your strategy. Like, for example, is there a certain candlestick pattern, a certain setup? Is there, um, are there certain criteria or confluences you see before you pull the trigger and enter a trade?
Yeah, so generally I like looking at also whether there's a certain pattern that could be forming. So I guess when you look post, how the day plays out, you might see a very obvious pattern. But in the moment, you might be seeing something form, like whether it's more like a double top, double bottom, for example, or even heads and shoulders pattern. So when you see this kind of, prevail, I'm also conscious that there's also a lot of people who would be seeing this, but it might be a slightly different. So, for example, if it's a double top, it won't be the exact level. It might be either a little bit below the previous top or even just above in order to knock a few people out. So, I'm conscious as a retail trader, you're going up against institutions, people who are hedging. You're going up against governments are buying these assets. So there's a lot of different things, and there's also accumulation throughout the day before news announcements, for example. So
Mm,
critical US news, there's accumulation because obviously if you think what the data is going to produce and what's ahead, you can basically go the opposite way and then make a quick buck basically
yeah.
with the amount of capital that they do have. So I'm always looking at that from that perspective as well.
Awesome. So if I got that right, you're looking for basically kind of like a stop hunt as well.
Yes.
If the institution is trying to grab or trying to stop out
Yeah.
a few
Yeah.
people from like a ranging market,
Yeah.
if they just pop it out and then draw it back in, you see that as rather than, you know,
Yeah.
because there'll be a lot of people who have limit orders set up ready to, trade the breakout.
Yeah.
And you usually see it, especially if you look at like order flow, for example, and you can see in the futures or the orders, you'll see, so many orders as soon as it breaks out of a key area, bang, like huge amount of orders, and then instantly they get absorbed, and the market can,
Yeah.
reverse within seconds. And I
Yeah.
mean, personally, that's something I love to trade as well. The I don't know the official term for it, but I call it
Yeah.
stop hunting or
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there
manipulation,
could
whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
it could be like a bear or bull trap, for example.
Yes. Yeah.
There's, within the news announcements, you can see the news announcements might not correspond with the actual news. Like, for example, it might be bullish for the USD, but the AUD will go down. But that's really a liquidity grab, and then you'll see it go up. So it's kind of knowing those sort of tips that occur because you don't know the other side, you don't know what the other positions are, whether they've held a position for so long and they're obviously closing our position, but then adding on. So it's being wary about all these sort of techniques within the market, which an average retail trader unfortunately doesn't know unless they
Yeah.
do, I guess, mentors who are able to instill this within them.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. And it's also about, being patient, taking your time,
Yeah.
and,
Yes.
having that because there's no one strategy or one setup that works 100% of the time. That just doesn't exist.
No.
But you can really up your chances of it working if you know certain criteria, like what
Yes.
session or what time of the day does this usually occur? When do you expect it
Yes.
to occur? If these stop hunts usually occur, let's say at sorry, I know you're in Australia, so your time zone is completely different. But for me,
Yeah.
1:30 p.m. here in London, for example, 1 p.m., 2 p.m. around that time when New York opens, and you have the crossover of London and New York, you really see
Yeah.
volatility in the market, and you really see movement, and you will see that kind of setup occur around that time. But if it happens, if I see like something that could be that setup, but it's in the middle of the Asian session,
Yeah.
probably it's just happens to look like it, but it probably isn't what I think it is. Do you see what I mean? So it will be a
Yeah.
stupid thing to
Yeah.
trade it in the middle of the Asian
Yeah.
session.
No.
So there's certain like times of when you should do it as well,
Yes.
and just be patient.
That
Yeah,
yeah.
if you don't see it,
Yeah. Just don't trade it.
Yeah,
But that's a good point, because within the Asian session, there's not too much activity that occurs. Obviously, there's probably lately there's China buying up gold, so obviously,
yeah,
gold in theory does go up more during the Asian session. But I guess when it comes to AED USD, especially around the London Open, I like the London Open because by the time it's the US Open, it's 1:30 a.m. my time, so it's very hard to stay awake during that sort of time. But the London Open, you can sometimes see a complete reversal of the actual day.
yeah,
So those sort of movements, but yeah, definitely that is probably my favorite sessions is the London times as well as opening of the US. That's where I'd see most of the volatility. I prefer to avoid trading the Asian session because there's not too much, especially on the Monday and the Friday, where you're not going to have the high liquidity. You're actually going to have low liquidity, and a lot of probably manipulation,
yeah,
because you're not going to have all markets operating at the same time.
yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. And that kind of just made me realize as well, you know, it, you almost have you have it harder than quite a lot of people because you are
Yes.
in a time zone where the times where you're awake and you're, on top form, sadly, a lot of the key instruments are just not moving. So you kind of, like you said, you have to trade at like 1:30 a.m., which actually is a lot harder than, just waking up 9 a.m. like I do, and the market is bustling. Um,
No,
so
I totally
pretty
appreciate.
impressive, that you can overcome that as well.
Yeah, no, I totally appreciate that. That's the one hindrance I do find, being in Australia and a different time zone is that I kind of imagine like if I was born in America or the UK, I would have it easier when it comes to trading because I wouldn't have to wait till early mornings and then have to obviously go to work and then do it over again. So. Maybe if I was in, for example, Perth, where they're like 3 hours behind Sydney, I'd have a better chance. It is a challenge, but again, when it comes to trading, it's about adapting to challenges and overcoming it. And it's about, that psychological is not letting your emotions, as well as sticking to your strategy, even just putting the stops when I go to sleep or just positions where I think it's going to hit while I'm asleep.
Yeah. And I guess that comes back down to psychology. Like I said, we're going to start talking about psychology in a bit. I guess also the fact that you are in a time zone that does make it a bit more difficult, and a lot of activity will be when you sleep. You kind of have to
Yes.
rely more on, like you said, you need to have a stop loss. You couldn't go to sleep without one. It would be ridiculous. So it kind of almost forces you to become disciplined because you have
That's
no
correct.
you have no choice really, do you? So how do you remain? I guess the question is, how do you remain disciplined? How do you keep control of your emotions? Was that something that took a lot of time for you, or did you already
Yeah.
kind of just have it naturally? Like some people are quite good naturally at being quite disciplined. Some people have that
Yep.
gambling streak in them, or yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess if you were to ask my wife that question, she'd be like, "Yeah, you've got no emotions at all." Um, Probably, probably the simplest way to say. But I guess over time you lose that emotion when you become a trader because emotions get you into trouble. Just like when it comes to anything in life, emotions get you into trouble. If you have an outburst, for example, that's only going to make things harder for you. Same thing when it comes to trading. And the one thing I like about trading is it's very similar to poker. So with poker, for example, I've read there is actually a Wall Street broker who gets their trainees to actually play poker and teach them poker,
okay,
because it's very transferable in the sense that you can have a lot of winning hands, but you are trying to protect those big losses. So if you accumulate a lot of blinds, for example, and then you have that big loss, you could go on tilt. And when you go on tilt, you're always chasing the next hand. So it might not be the best hand to go in with. So it's a similar thing to trading is that if you let that sort of psychology come into play and your behavior, you're always chasing. And the thing is that you're not going to win all the time. You only need one good trade in order to make it. And then when you've got that good trade and you know that you're confident, if you, for example, if you add on positions, you can overcome the market rather than trying to trade every day and all these little trades of getting in and out. Because once those big trades hit, just like yesterday, if you had a position in, that was so many pips, and there was
Mm,
no warning, there was no time. I'm sure that was because Trump said something about the Canada tariffs and the New Mexico tariffs, and that's what would have closed everyone out. And being, yeah, obviously the
yeah,
challenge would have been over, as well as anyone with real money will have lost quite significant amount of fun. But then again, yeah, risk to reward. Some people win, some people lose.
absolutely. And I can tell just from talking to you, you're quite a grounded individual, quite logical. Wouldn't say you're completely emotionless. I mean, you don't see, but you're absolutely right. You have to, in a weird way, be like a robot, but still have the human aspect of. That's why a lot of people say, "Oh, well, trading robots are really good," and I kind of disagree. I mean, a trading robot sure doesn't have emotions, but
Yes,
it, it there's still a human aspect about trading. You kind of need to, because it's never two of the exact same. Even if the exact same pattern occurs, like I said,
yes,
you have to look at it in the bigger context. And
yes,
maybe with AI, they can, this is going to be a hurdle they'll overcome. But in traditional coding, that kind of very hard to kind of code. Do you see what I mean? To kind of be adaptive. So I still think,
yeah, no,
it's a human skill. It's a very
it
human skill
definitely.
trading, but you
So
just need to rid the emotions.
yeah, no, definitely. So I mean, it's a good point that you actually make. So there's a lot of people who try to sell algorithms. I've worked on algorithms more from providing perspective of hindsight from a trader's perspective, and a lot of the times the algorithms, especially before news announcements, that's where they lost the most.
Yeah.
I did have one client actually last year where his algorithm stuffed up and he lost 200,000
Oof.
AED. And this was for actual fun. So he actually enlisted me to help him overcome that, which was a good outcome because I was able to help him out in that situation. But also there was a previous company that used to be trading all in algorithms, and they
Mm,
were algorithm based. I think it was called Knight Capital or something like that. And they were one of the innovators. They did really well for a certain period of time, but something happened where basically they went bankrupt.
yeah.
You're totally right there. You can't have just, algorithms. There needs to be that human element because you know exactly what's going on when it comes to the world. Like, yeah, for example, anything to do with the Gaza ceasefire recently or
Yeah.
Ukraine, those are the anomalies, Trump's elections anomaly, as well as anything that, is said. So without having that, algorithm's not going to have that context,
Yeah.
and therefore they will never be able to stop those trades before those excessive losses.
Absolutely. I mean, you hit the nail on the head right there. I mean, I'm not saying that they don't have a place in trading, but I
Yes.
think, having it 100% automated like that dream that so many people
Yes.
pitch to you, yeah, I just don't see it fully happening. Maybe in the future with AI, but
Yeah.
at this current pace. And I think also if someone did and really create something like that, I don't think it will be just available to buy on the open market. It will be pitched to the biggest banks in the world and
Yes,
kept very
definitely.
hush hush. And maybe there is something like that exists already and we just don't know about it. Who knows? But it won't be for retail traders. So, but the good thing is, even with AI developing, I know I'm taking it a bit off topic, but it's quite an
You know,
interesting point. a lot of people are quite worried about the future with AI developing, about regardless of, if you've got an office-based job, there's a lot of jobs that AI can kind of like 80% do what you do. So how replaceable are you? Do you see what I
Yes.
mean? And a lot of people are quite worried about that in the next, decade or so. But and I always say trading, even if AI, because at the moment there is a lot of automated trades in the market. I think the majority of the
Yes.
trades in the market are automated. And even
Yes.
if AI gets really, complex and can still trade, it doesn't stop you as a human being able to trade. So no one can stop you from trading. Does that make sense? So you're never really out of a job if you know how to trade, if you
That's
understand
true.
the core concepts, and you control your emotions, and you can be profitable and consistent regardless if there's AI out there trading or humans trading or I don't know, dogs trading. It doesn't really matter. The market's there. You can get into it and you can make money essentially. So it's kind of future proof in a weird way. It's just you got to get over that hurdle of actually becoming good
You
at
know,
it.
and with algorithms, most of the ones that do operate and actually are successful in problems are the one step challenges. So
Mm,
they're all the high frequency algorithms, which obviously any surprise action. But when it comes to the two step, and for myself, the one step is not ideal because of the constraints, the consistency rules that a lot of the prop firms have. They're just not feasible as a trader. Like
yeah,
they are like to get 30% you need as an average and all these sort of rules, they're not actually made by traders for traders. Similar to obviously Hola Prime, where I read that it's actually made from traders, like actual experienced traders for
yeah,
traders. And that's the thing is that a lot of the other prop firms, especially with using algorithms, um, they're actually more thinking about the profits they make as a business rather
yeah.
than the trader with their goals. And
Oh,
I think that's
absolutely.
a key in
Yeah,
trying to find them who has those same sort of objectives of trying to help you, especially within this sort of climate of the cost of living, etc.
yeah, no, absolutely. And interesting point about what you mentioned about Ola Prime, because I mean, we didn't start. I mean, Ola Prime started as a prop firm, but the people who built it, so me and everyone behind in the team as well, we started as a trading firm.
Yes.
We were a trading floor. And we still are a trading floor. We're actual traders who know the markets very well. And each one of us are quite have a specialty in a different kind of market. I'm very much pound US dollar and gold, those and euro US dollar, and then we have yen traders, and we have different people who are experts in particular pairs, and we really understand the markets inside out. Inside
Yeah.
out, sorry. We have so many different, types of trading as well. We have quite technical ones with order flow. I'm part of the order flow crew, but um, do you know what I mean? And we
Yeah.
combined all our knowledge, and we understand exactly, like you said, what traders want, and we created the challenges to as you said, to be, advantageous to the trader, understand what the trader needs and what their needs are. So, yeah, really good point in pointing that out. Yeah, so essentially, we're an actual trading floor, and that's why we built Ola Prime as well. To basically, create a prop firm for traders because we understand what traders want and need. I'd like to talk a bit more about Ola Prime, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
If you
Definitely.
could let us know or tell the viewers, how you came about Ola Prime, and also, how you found um, the challenge phase, passing it, and the payouts.
Yeah.
Your overall experience so
Yeah.
far.
Definitely. So I actually, with Hola Prime, I was actually looking on Trustpilot. Obviously, when it comes to any sub broker reviews, whether it's a broker or prop firm, I'll always look at Trust Review, and I noticed that it's got a 4.95. I was speaking to other sort of trader friends. I actually don't have many trader friends in Australia. Most of them are actually in the US, in Europe UK, etc., as well as all these other sort of countries that I speak to. And they did mention that there's this new up and coming prop firm, Hola Prime, and I saw the advertisements winning the up and coming award, etc. Saw about the 1 hour payouts as well as looking into it. The sort of weekly payouts. Thought that as someone who lives in quite an expensive city, to be honest, you do need that regular sort of income. So
Yeah.
it was just ideal for me. And the one thing I also look at with a prop firm is news trading as well as weekend holdings. So whether it's day trading, if it's more of a longer term, and the profit split being 95%. When you're looking at other prop firms and it's 80%, it just, yeah, as well as read about the transparency report, more that one-to-one ratio. So there's that, the actual payouts itself. It's not like some of the previous companies. So I used to have my Forex fund,
Mhm.
and a lot of people probably know about my Forex fund. So I had a 300K account, had the I had two, and basically that's the max you're allowed. And basically they went bust. Um,
Mm,
there's also another American one, which was the funded trader. They're back again, but again, I had accounts with them, and yeah, it's something that you want to make sure that similar to when you're looking at a real broker, you need a prop firm that's transparent, that clearly won't go under,
yeah.
because you're dealing with significant money,
Yeah.
and yeah, and if you've got a 300K account, which I do have with Hola Prime, and the sort of payouts I've received recently, if that goes, that's a significant chunk that's not going towards my mortgage and paying off my mortgage. And I know that my bills are coming up when it comes to my place. So obviously, that's a big sort of impact. So I guess, yeah, and I guess a lot of things I've noticed with other prop firms is they don't have that sort of contact. So you'll send a message if you've got any sort of issues, and then you're waiting probably like for a day, or just quite some time just to receive an e email. So it is actually set up just like any other full service broker,
Yeah.
which is, I guess,
And
the cost. Yep.
and here's the thing, we have in-house support. We
Yes.
don't outsource it to, some random call center. We have in-house people 24/7 as support staff. So, it's we do everything in-house basically with Ola Prime. We don't outsource anything. And I think people misunderstand a lot of prop firms. There's two different types of prop firms, so to speak, right? There's the ones who their main money is selling you the challenge and hoping you fail. That's their
Yep.
main income source. And then there's the prop firm that genuinely need, in order to be profitable, in order to actually make money, need good traders who can consistently make profit. So, our algorithm can basically, essentially, take their
Yep.
trades and copy it over onto other accounts and larger accounts and therefore make money. Just like how in any large investment bank, there's a proprietary desk. We have taken that concept. I mean, that's literally where prop firm comes from, but we've taken that
Yep.
concept truly how investment banks do it. And we're doing it on a global market, not just like, here, take a challenge, praying you fail, because that's our main income source. Like the challenge
Yep.
fee is next to nothing, you know.
Yep. Definitely.
Yeah, it's we genuinely want the top traders out there. And if you can prove that you are a good trader, I mean, we'll treat you well because
Yep.
you're an asset. You're not a liability. You're a genuine asset to us. And that's why it's all
Yeah.
about being transparent. And
I
yeah,
mean,
we want to
obviously
attract the best.
the costs are so low, and already, being invited to obviously, you know, speak to you. It's a privilege.
Oh no,
And
the privilege is all
yeah,
mine, honestly. It's absolutely great, getting to see our traders, and just having a conversation, getting to know their story, and also being able to share that to the world. Um,
yes,
yeah, it's great, and all the stuff, because there are certain hurdles you have gone through as a trader to get where you are today. Um, there's a lot of people out there who won't be in your position right now, but maybe in a year, 2 years they could be. But they're probably at a point at a crossroads where they're thinking, I can't make this work, and they're thinking about giving up, but they're that close, of having that breakthrough, and maybe just watching, you talk about your story gives them that motivation just to keep going, and then a few months later they have that breakthrough moment for themselves,
yeah,
and it changes their life essentially without being too dramatic, but it can change your life. So
yeah, no,
absolutely, thank you so much for coming on and actually talking with us. But I don't want to end it right now. There's still a
yeah,
few
no,
more
definitely.
things I would like to talk about.
But
Uh,
that's a really good point because I mean, as a trader, the one thing is that you also need to be confident in your mindset, in the way that you can adapt and overcome any sort of losses, obviously psychological hurdles, as well as your technique per se. So similar to, I guess, sports. I love my cricket. Australia's in the world in
sure.
the Test cricket, so they've made it, and essentially it's the same sort of thing. Is that when it comes to cricket, for example, it's about your technique, but it's about your patience. So everything's kind of like transferable, whether it's poker, whether it's sports, etc. And the one thing is, I've had so many times where I've wanted to give up because I've had really good wins, and then really got humbled.
Yeah.
And the fact is now I always know the market is a market for a reason. Yeah, there's a reason why there's a low percentage of people passing prop firms. I happen to be lucky enough to have passed quite a few, as well as taken, payouts. But it's also one of those things that in the front of your mind, you know that the market can go against you at any moment. And that's the being realistic, is that you don't want to take it for granted, for example.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You mentioned, you got humbled. Obviously, every
Yes.
trader at some point gets humbled.
Yes.
It happens and it's unavoidable. Essentially, I wouldn't say unavoidable, but it pretty much is. It's inevitable that it will happen at some point. Um, could you tell us a little bit about, some of the ups and downs you've experienced, like the ones that really stick in your mind?
Yes. So I guess a lot of them, I mean, that really stick in my mind is so every time when it comes to a bad trade, it always resembles in my mind because I keep on thinking. I like to think in my head. I don't necessarily write it down, but I'm always thinking, days after, what I could have done, what impacted, etc. I guess a lot of the if anything, it would be to do with the more recent Gaza, etc. So once that started, that was very humbling with a lot of the sort of trading because those are the sort of anomalies that you would never predict.
Mm,
Um, but you know, nowadays with the trading, it's gone much harder. I mean, I follow a lot of other sort of traders as well to get ideas and everyone says the same is that it's just getting harder. So
yeah,
it means that we've got to get better and get smarter. And a lot of that, you've just got to make sure that you take your wins and protect any sort of big losses, and avoid over trading.
yeah,
Preferences to also, I like to not always look at the charts every time. Like, throughout my day, I might just check my phone now and then. I try to avoid looking too much, because if you overlook at the charts, it can also be a hindrance to your training because then you would have seen the sort of movements, and what you think is really confident, it might just it'll be like reverse psychology and you would just close out your position and realize that you were right in the end. So
Yeah.
um, those sort of big trades, it just demonstrates that you need to know when to be confident, and when that when you're not sure, and it's better to be out of the market.
Oh, absolutely. And it's interesting because a lot of traders, that I've spoken to in the past, a lot of them come with that kind of really strict, rigid kind of rules where, especially when it comes to risk management, like obviously risk reward is
Yeah,
one that they'll have. So they'll have 1 to 2, 1 to 3, whatever it might be, but they'll have a
yeah,
positive risk to reward. And then when it comes to like stop loss and take profit, a lot of them just have hard stops, hard take profit, and it works for them because a lot of them they understand it's just a mathematical, it's a game of probability, really. If
yeah,
if you are even 55% right,
yes,
or 50% right, but you have a 1 to 2 risk reward, and you can
mm,
consistently do that, you will be profitable. Even if you have a
yeah,
bad day, a bad week, it's math will kick in, and it's just like how a casino earns money. Like mathematically, they might only have a 2% edge against a player, but they rake in billions because it doesn't
yeah,
fail. The house always wins, and it's just about having that edge. And if you break your rules, well, you're messing up that balance, that careful careful balance, which could ultimately put you in the negative long term. So are you like very strict with your stop loss or take profit? Because it's not really I wouldn't say,
yeah,
one way is correct and one way is wrong. It depends what
yeah,
works for you. I'm, for example, very fluid with the market. But I trade, I'm a scalper, so I don't hold positions. I'm very quick in and out. So I can't really have I will have a fixed stop loss where, like, no, if it goes beyond this point, I'm definitely out. But
yeah,
with the take profit, like a lot of time, I will be quite fluid depending on what's happening in the market live minute per minute. Same with the stop loss as well. Like if I see, I won't even let it hit my stop loss a lot of the time. If I see something I don't like, I'm out.
yeah,
But you being more of a longer, like 4 hour chart, so I guess you're more sort of intraday swing kind of trader.
yeah.
Are you very harsh with your stop loss and take profits? Like,
Well, I'm more like I look at the 4 hour as a swing, but I'm more of a day trader, so I rather
hmm,
go in and with decent sized lots in order to and just have a certain barrier that is a hard sub stop. But I am fluid in the way that if, for example, I'm in profit, I would rather just make it break even stop and then just let it flow on. And for example, with challenges, especially getting to the stage of being funded, I rather ride the momentum. So, for example, if I've got momentum on the first day, you're giving yourself an extra drawdown compared to, the 5%. So therefore, you might as well ride that momentum with the price action because, it gives you that more flexibility. And because I've got the confidence that even if that went down, I could always recover again. So it's one of those things I'm more like I adapt to each situation and I just see what the market plays out. But I also remember things that happened previously in other years, like like what I said before about 2018, and what happened. It was actually around end of September.
hmm,
So similar to this year, end of September is when there was that sort of AUD USD dropped. Same this year was around the 26th of September. So I remember that. And yeah, obviously we have yeah
yeah.
history kind of repeats at some point.
Oh, absolutely. But no, that's really good to hear. I'm guessing we're going to start wrapping it up. I think we
Yeah.
covered pretty much all the major talking points. I guess the last bit, just to for the viewers, are there any tips or tricks that you hold dear and that you really stick to and believe by, that you would like to share with the viewers today that could help in their trading journey?
Yes, I think the main thing that I've seen, especially with mentoring, like probably like some of the smartest people in the world, like I've mentored a lot of people who have basically gone through every strategy. But I've also said that by learning all strategies, you're actually overcomplicating, trading itself. Because when you've got arsenal of all these strategies, real time you're trying to figure out what to use. And that hesitation is what's going to cause you to make that wrong decision potentially. So you rather stick to a strategy which is comfortable and tailored to yourself, redefine that. Try not to expose yourself to too many pairs or commodities or whatever you trade. Um, Make sure that risk management is front of mind. Be confident, but yet be humble that anything can happen. So yeah, I think the main thing is belief in yourself. And trading's the same as life in general. If you believe in yourself that you can achieve something, you can. If you don't, you're setting yourself up to fail. And that's really what I've done. I mean, I've always been doubted in my career personally, because I finished high school, I never went to university, which in Australia is pretty big. But yet I've never let that, yeah, that's been hard for me to overcome, but eventually I've overcome that, and now I'm confident enough to be able to achieve anything, whether it's work life or whether it's trading. So it's having that growth mindset, and knowing that you can achieve it. You
Yeah,
just never know. If you put your mind to it, you can achieve anything, and that's with
absolutely.
trading, sports, life, anything.
Well said. Really well said. I know it sounds cliche, but yeah, it's fundamentally true. If you really put the time and effort in, whatever it is, it's achievable. And I like to always say, some people are like, how can I ever, become wealthy, with trading? How can I even just become a millionaire with trading? And I say to them, there's people who have crossed out there, not with trading necessarily, but there's people out there who have made hundreds of billions of dollars,
Yeah.
and you're questioning whether you can make just 1 million. It's like it can be done. You just have to really grind, and you really have to. I know it sounds cliche, very Instagram quotey, but it is ultimately true. If you put the time and effort in, and
Yeah.
you don't get distracted by the wrong kind of people who are just trying to sell you stuff for the sake of making a quick buck, but you really stick to the tried and true. um, you'll get there eventually. You just have to stick
Yeah.
at it, and I couldn't
And
agree more.
generally it comes when you least expect it.
Oh,
Good things.
absolutely. Yeah. Well, Stephen, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you
I
today.
really appreciate
I know the time difference is probably a bit late there now, so I don't want to keep you up too late. But thank you so much for taking the time, telling us about your story, sharing your insights that were truly, valuable to anyone watching, whether they experienced or a beginner in trading. So once again, thank you so much for coming on.
Nice. Thank you, Sam, and I really appreciate you inviting me on.
You're absolutely welcome to come back anytime. And that wraps up today's episode of Ola Trader Stories. Guys, remember, every trader has their own path, and sometimes just the simplest strategies can be, the biggest success. There is no right or wrong necessarily, but you need to find something that works for you. But the true fundamental cause, psychology, things like that, never change regardless of what strategy you use. But guys, check out olaprime.com, obviously. Look at our great funding plans. We always have little promotions running here and there, so have a look. Also, join our vibrant community on Discord, which you can find at olaprime.com, where you can connect with fellow traders, get real time updates, access special offers, and so much more. So, once again, thank you for watching. Thank you, Stephen, for coming on, and we'll see you again very soon. Take care.